I woke to the sound of shattering glass. My eyes snapped open, heart pounding, as the faint clink of a broken dish echoed from the kitchen. It was 3 a.m., and the house was supposed to be silent. I lay still, listening, my breath shallow. Clara, my wife of 7 years, wasn't beside me. Her side of the bed was cold, the sheets undisturbed. She hadn't come to bed at all. I slipped out from under the covers, the hardwood floor icy against my bare feet. The hallway was dark, save for a thin sliver of light spilling from the kitchen door. I moved quietly, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. Clara was there, standing over the sink, her back to me. A broken plate lay in pieces on the counter, and she was muttering to herself, her voice low and urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but the rhythm was wrong, sharp, jagged, not like her usual calm cadence. Clara. My voice was soft, careful not to startle her. She froze, her shoulders stiffening. Slowly, she turned, her face pale under the fluorescent light. Her eyes, usually warm and hazel, were wide, almost wild. Elliot, she said, forcing a smile. I didn't see you there. I dropped the plate. Clumsy me. I nodded, though the air felt thick with something unspoken. You okay? I asked, stepping closer. The shards glinted under the light, jagged edges catching my eye. It wasn't just a plate. It was one of our wedding gifts, the delicate porcelain with blue roses we'd laughed about because it was so impractical. I'm fine, she said quickly, sweeping the pieces into a dustpan. Just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd clean up a bit. At 3 a.m.? I didn't say it. Instead, I watched her hands tremble slightly as she worked. Clara was always composed, the kind of woman who could organize a charity gala for 200 people without breaking a sweat. This wasn't her. Want me to help? I offered, though I didn't move closer. Something told me to keep my distance. She shook her head, her smile tightening. No, I've got it. Go back to bed, Elliot. You've got that big presentation tomorrow. She was right. I was pitching a new architectural design to a client in the morning, a project that could make or break my firm. But as I turned to leave, I caught her reflection in the kitchen window. She wasn't cleaning anymore. She was staring at the broken pieces, her lips moving again, as if arguing with someone who wasn't there. The next morning, Clara was herself again, or so it seemed. She made coffee, kissed me on the cheek, and wished me luck with the presentation. But as I drove to the office, the image of her standing over that broken plate gnawed at me. It wasn't just the plate. It was the way she'd looked at me, like I was a stranger in my own house. Work was a blur. The clients loved the pitch, and my team was ecstatic, but I couldn't shake the unease. By the time I got home, Clara was in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. How'd it go? She asked, her tone light. Great, I said, studying her. We got the contract. That's amazing, Elliot. She stood, wrapping her arms around me. But her embrace felt mechanical, like she was going through the motions. I pulled back, searching her face for answers, but she turned away, muttering something about dinner. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the previous night, the broken plate, her trembling hands. Around midnight, I heard her phone buzz on the nightstand. She was asleep, or pretending to be. I reached over, careful not to wake her, and glanced at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Meet me tomorrow. Same place. Don't be late. My stomach dropped. I set the phone down, my mind racing. Who was she meeting? Why at midnight? I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but something stopped me. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure. The next day, I made an excuse about a late meeting and left the house early. But I didn't go to the office. Instead, I parked down the street, watching our house from a distance. At 2 p.m., Clara stepped out, dressed in a dark coat I didn't recognize. She glanced around, then got into her car and drove off. I followed, keeping my distance, my hands tied on the steering wheel. She led me to a cafe downtown, one I'd never seen her visit before. Through the window, I saw her sit across from a man in a gray suit. He was older, maybe mid-50s, with sharp features and a confident posture. They leaned close, talking intently. My heart pounded as I watched her laugh, her hand brushing his arm. It wasn't the laugh she used with me. It was something else, something secret. I drove home, my mind a storm of questions. Who was he? What was she hiding? And why did I feel like the life I'd built with Clara was slipping through my fingers? That night, as we sat at dinner, she chatted about her day, some story about a coworker's birthday party. But I barely heard her. All I could think about was that man, that cafe, that text. I needed answers, and I needed them soon, because something told me this was only the beginning. I couldn't look at Clara the same way. Her smile, once my anchor, now felt like a mask. That night at dinner, her words about her coworker's birthday party rang hollow, each syllable laced with something I couldn't name. I nodded along, forcing a smile, but my mind was elsewhere, back at that cafe, replaying the way her hand grazed that man's arm. Who was he? And why was she hiding him? The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. Clara left for work early, her usual routine as a marketing consultant. She kissed me goodbye, her lips cool against my cheek, and drove off. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed her laptop from the study. She'd always been casual about passwords, trusting me completely. Or so I thought. It took me 3 tries, our anniversary, her birthday, our dog's name, before I realized she'd changed it. That alone made my chest tighten. I didn't have time to crack it. Instead, I checked her desk, rifling through drawers for anything out of place. Bills, receipts, a half-written grocery list. Nothing unusual. Then, tucked under a stack of old notepads, I found a small key, tarnished and unfamiliar. It didn't fit any lock in the house. I tried every door, cabinet, and safe we owned. My fingers closed around it, the metal cold against my palm. What did it open? And why was it hidden? I slipped the key into my pocket and headed to my office, but work was impossible. My team was buzzing about the new contract, but I kept checking my phone, half expecting a message from Clara that would explain everything. None came. By noon, I couldn't sit still. I told my assistant I was stepping out for lunch and drove back to the cafe I'd seen Clara at yesterday. The place was called the Blue Haven, a cozy spot with exposed brick walls and mismatched chairs. I sat in a corner booth, ordering a coffee I didn't intend to drink. The barista, a young woman with a nose ring, seemed friendly enough. I took a chance. "Hey," I said, leaning forward. "You work here often?" She nodded, wiping down the counter. "Pretty much every day. I was here yesterday," I lied, and saw a friend. Older guy, gray suit, sharp features. "Know him?" Her eyes flickered with recognition, but she shrugged. Lots of guys in suits come through. Hard to keep track. I slid a 20 across the counter, keeping my tone casual. "Anything you can tell me?" "I'm trying to surprise him for his birthday." She hesitated, then pocketed the bill. "He's been coming in for a few weeks. Usually meets a woman. Brunette, polished, maybe late 30s. They're always in that booth by the window." My stomach twisted. That was Clara. They seemed close. I asked, keeping my voice steady. She smirked. "Let's just say they don't talk about the weather. Lots of whispering, you know." I thanked her and left, the coffee untouched. Whispering. Secret meetings. A hidden key. The pieces were forming a picture I didn't want to see, but I couldn't stop looking. That evening, I made another excuse, a client dinner, and followed Clara again. This time, she didn't go to the cafe. She drove to a small office building on the edge of town, one I'd never seen her mention. She parked, glanced around, and slipped inside. I waited, my car idling across the street. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, she emerged. But she wasn't alone. The man in the gray suit was with her, carrying a briefcase. They stood close, too close, their heads bent together as they spoke. Then he handed her something, a small envelope. She tucked it into her purse, and they parted ways. I followed her home, my mind racing. What was in the envelope? Was it money? Documents? Something worse? When she walked through the door, I was already there, pretending to read a book. "Long day?" I asked, my voice light. She startled, then recovered with a smile. "Yeah, just a client meeting that ran late." "You?" "Same," I lied. "You seem tired. Everything okay?" Her eyes darted to her purse, then back to me. "Of course. Just work stress." I nodded, but my gaze lingered on her purse. That night, while she showered, I checked it. The envelope was gone. I searched her coat, her car, even the trash, nothing. She was covering her tracks, and she was good at it. The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't confront her yet, not without proof, but I could play her game. I called a private investigator, a guy named Marcus I'd met through a client. He was discreet, sharp, and didn't ask too many questions. "I need you to follow my wife," I told him over the phone. "Find out who she's meeting and why." "Got it," Marcus said. "Anything specific I should look for?" "Everything," I said. "Every detail." As I hung up, Clara walked into the kitchen, humming softly. She looked radiant, like the woman I'd fallen in love with. For a moment, I doubted myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was all in my head. But then I felt the key in my pocket, its weight a reminder of the secret she was keeping. That afternoon, Marcus texted me a single photo, Clara entering a storage facility on the outskirts of town, the man in the gray suit by her side. My heart sank. The key. It had to be for a storage unit. What was she hiding there? And how much deeper did this go? The photo from Marcus burned in my mind. Clara, her face half hidden by sunglasses, stepping into a storage facility with that man in the gray suit. The key in my pocket felt heavier now, its purpose clearer. It had to unlock something in that facility, something Clara didn't want me to see. I sat at my desk, staring at the photo on my phone, my thumb hovering over her contact. I wanted to call her, to demand answers, but I knew she'd deflect. She was too good at that. Instead, I texted Marcus, find out what unit they're using. I need to know what's inside. That evening, Clara was home before me, cooking pasta in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. The smell of garlic and basil filled the air, a false promise of normalcy. You're late, she said, glancing over her shoulder with a smile. Rough day. Client revisions, I said, the lie coming easily now. I watched her move, her hands steady as she stirred the sauce. No trace of the trembling I'd seen that night with the broken plate. She was in control again, but I wasn't buying it. We ate in near silence, the clink of forks against plates louder than our conversation. I kept glancing at her purse, wondering where she'd hidden that envelope. After dinner, she said she was meeting a friend for drinks, a rare occurrence. Lydia from work, she said, already grabbing her coat. I won't be late. I nodded, but as soon as her car pulled out, I grabbed my keys and drove to the storage facility. The place was on the edge of town, a sprawling complex of low buildings surrounded by a chain-link fence. It was after hours, the gate locked, but I parked nearby and waited. Marcus had promised to get me the unit number by morning, but I couldn't sit still. I needed to see it for myself. Under the cover of darkness, I climbed the fence, my heart racing. The facility was quiet, lit only by dim security lights. I moved quickly, sticking to the shadows, the key clutched in my hand. I didn't know the unit number, but I had to try. I started with the first row, testing the key in every lock. Nothing fit. My frustration grew with each failed attempt, the cold metal biting into my palm. Then I heard footsteps. I ducked behind a unit, holding my breath. A security guard passed by, his flashlight sweeping the ground. I waited until he was gone, then moved to the next row. That's when I saw it. Unit 47, its lock glinting under a flickering light. My gut told me this was it. I slid the key in, and it turned with a soft click. Inside, the unit was small, cluttered with boxes and a single filing cabinet. I used my phone's flashlight, careful not to linger too long. The boxes were labeled with dates, some going back years. I opened one, old photos, letters, documents. One caught my eye, a lease agreement for an apartment I'd never heard of, signed by Clara 2 years ago. My stomach churned. Why would she need a secret apartment? The filing cabinet was locked, and my key didn't fit. I was about to leave when I noticed a small notebook tucked behind a box. I flipped it open. Pages of numbers, dates, and cryptic notes in Clara's handwriting. One entry stood out. October 12, 2024, transfer complete. He knows. My blood ran cold. Who was he? And what had she transferred? I pocketed the notebook and slipped out, locking the unit behind me. As I climbed back over the fence, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, Unit 47. They're meeting there tomorrow, 3 p.m. I froze. Tomorrow. I could confront her then, catch her in the act. But what if I was walking into something I wasn't ready for? The next day, I called in sick and parked near the storage facility, watching from a distance. At 2:55 p.m., Clara's car pulled up. The man in the gray suit was already there, leaning against his sleek black sedan. They didn't go inside. Instead, they stood in the parking lot, talking in low voices. I strained to hear, but I was too far. Then Clara handed him another envelope, and he gave her a small package in return. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What were they trading? I followed the man this time, keeping my distance. He drove to a law firm downtown, one I recognized from a case my company had consulted on. I waited until he went inside, then called Marcus. I need a name, I said. The guy in the gray suit. Find out who he is. On it, Marcus replied. But Elliot, be careful. This guy's not just some random. He's connected. Connected how? I asked, my throat dry. I'll know more soon. Just don't do anything stupid. That night, Clara came home late, her face flushed from drinks with Lydia. She didn't mention the storage facility or the man. I didn't mention the key, the notebook, or the lease. We were both playing a game now, each pretending the other wasn't lying. But as I lay awake, her steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running out of time. The notebook was hidden in my briefcase, its cryptic words looping in my mind. He knows. Was that about me? Or someone else? Tomorrow, I'd be at Unit 47 before the Nubian princesses her. Whatever she was hiding, I'd find out. And then what? I didn't know. But the truth was coming, and it felt like a storm on the horizon. The air felt thick as I parked a block from the storage facility, my eyes fixed on the entrance. It was 2:30 p.m., and Clara was due to meet the man in the gray suit in 30 minutes. My hands gripped the steering wheel, the notebook from Unit 47 tucked inside my jacket. Its cryptic entries, dates, numbers, he knows, had kept me up all night, each word a splinter in my mind. I needed to know what Clara was hiding, and today, I'd get answers. I told my office I was taking a personal day, a rare move that raised eyebrows among my team. But I didn't care. The key to Unit 47 was in my pocket, and I had a plan. Get inside before Clara and her mystery man arrived, see what they were doing, and figure out what was in that locked filing cabinet. Marcus hadn't called back with a name yet, but his warning about the man being connected echoed in my head. I pushed it aside. I was too deep to back out now. At 2:45, I slipped over the fence, moving faster than the night before. The facility was quiet, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. I reached Unit 47, unlocked it, and stepped inside. The air smelled stale, like old paper and dust. I went straight for the filing cabinet, but its lock still wouldn't budge. Frustration clawed at me. I turned to the boxes instead, flipping through more documents, bank statements, none in our names, and a photo of Clara with a woman I didn't recognize, standing in front of a house I'd never seen. The woman had sharp cheekbones and dark hair, her arm around Clara like they were old friends. My stomach twisted. Who was she? I froze at the sound of tires crunching outside. Peering through a crack in the door, I saw Clara's car pull up, followed by the black sedan. They were early. I ducked behind a stack of boxes, my heart pounding. The door creaked open, and Clara's voice filled the space, low and tense. "We need to move faster," she said. "He's getting suspicious." The man's voice was calm, almost amused. "You're overthinking it, Clara. He doesn't know anything." I held my breath, my pulse deafening. Were they talking about me? I shifted slightly, trying to see them without being spotted. Clara was pacing, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse. The man leaned against the wall, his gray suit immaculate, a faint smirk on his face. "The transfer's almost done," he said. "One more meeting, and we're clear." "Then what?" Clara snapped. "You think I can just go back to pretending everything's fine?" "You've been pretending for years," he said, his tone sharp now. "You're good at it." My chest tightened. Years? What did that mean? I wanted to step out, to confront them, but my body wouldn't move. I needed more, something concrete. Then Clara pulled a small flash drive from her purse and handed it to him. "This is the last of it," she said. "Don't mess this up." He pocketed the drive and handed her another envelope. "You worry too much," he said, then turned to leave. Clara lingered, staring at the envelope like it burned her hands. She didn't see me, didn't know I was there. As soon as they left, I slipped out, my mind racing. A flash drive. Secret accounts. A mysterious woman in a photo. It was all connected, but how? I drove home, barely registering the road. Clara wasn't back yet, so I called Marcus. "I need that name," I said, my voice tight. "And anything you've got on a storage unit at Blue Haven Storage, Unit 47. "I'm working on it," Marcus said. "But I've got something else." "That guy?" "His name's Victor Lang. He's a lawyer, specializes in offshore accounts and corporate cover-ups. Not someone you want to cross, Elliot." "Too late for that," I said. "What about the unit?" "Registered to a shell company. No direct link to Clara, but I'm digging. Give me a day." A day felt like forever, but I agreed. That night, Clara came home late again, claiming another work event. She was cheerful, almost too cheerful, asking about my day like nothing was wrong. I played along, but every word felt like a chess move. After she went to bed, I checked her purse again. The envelope was there this time, tucked in a hidden pocket. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a bank transfer confirmation for $50,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands. The sender's name wasn't Clara's, it was the same shell company Marcus mentioned. I sat back, the paper trembling in my hands. Clara was moving money, big money. But why? Was she planning to leave me? To disappear? Or was it something else entirely? I hid the paper and went to bed, but sleep didn't come. My mind kept circling back to Victor Lang's words. "You've been pretending for years." What had Clara been hiding all this time? The next morning, I woke to a text from Marcus. "Found something. Meet me at the diner on 5th, noon." I glanced at Clara, still asleep, her face serene. For a moment, I wanted to believe she was still the woman I'd married. But the key, the notebook, the bank transfer, they told a different story. As I drove to meet Marcus, I felt the weight of every secret piling up. Whatever he'd found, it would change everything. And as I pulled into the diner's parking lot, I saw a familiar car parked across the street. Clara's. She was here. But why? Clara's car was parked across from the diner, its sleek silver frame glinting under the midday sun. My heart slammed against my ribs as I pulled into the lot, scanning for her. Was she following me? Or was this about Victor Lang? I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing through every possible scenario. The notebook, the key, the bank transfer, each piece of the puzzle pointed to a life Clara had kept hidden. And now, here she was, at the exact place I was meeting Marcus. I stepped out of my car, keeping my movements casual, and glanced at her vehicle. Empty. She was already inside or somewhere nearby. The diner was a retro spot, all chrome and red vinyl, with a neon sign buzzing faintly. I pushed through the door, the bell jingling above me, and spotted Marcus in a corner booth, his laptop open. He looked up, his expression grim, and waved me over. "Elliot," he said, keeping his voice low. "You're not gonna like this." I slid into the booth, my eyes darting to the windows. No sign of Clara. "What did you find?" I asked, my throat tight. Marcus pushed a folder across the table. "Victor Lang's not just a lawyer. He's a fixer, specializes in cleaning up messes for wealthy clients. Offshore accounts, fake identities, you name it. That shell company tied to Unit 47? It's one of his. And Clara's name is all over it." I opened the folder, my hands unsteady. Documents stared back at me. Bank records, emails, even a passport with Clara's photo but a different name, Elena Carter. My stomach churned. "Who the hell is Elena Carter?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's the kicker," Marcus said, leaning closer. "Elena Carter doesn't exist. It's an alias, and it's tied to a network of accounts moving millions over the past 3 years. Clara's been funneling money through Lang's company. I don't know why yet, but it's big. Millions." The word hit like a punch. I thought of our life together, our modest house, her marketing job, our quiet weekends. None of it screamed wealth or deceit. How had she hidden this? And why? I flipped through the folder, stopping at a grainy photo of Clara and the woman from the storage unit picture. They were in a park, laughing, their heads close. "Who's this?" I asked, tapping the image. Marcus frowned. "Don't know yet. She's not in any of Lang's files. But she's been seen with Clara multiple times, always off the grid, no public trail." Before I could ask more, the diner door jingled. I glanced up, and there was Clara, standing in the entrance, her eyes scanning the room. She hadn't seen me yet, but my pulse spiked. "She's here," I hissed, sliding lower in the booth. Marcus followed my gaze, his jaw tightening. "You want me to stall her?" "No," I said, my mind racing. "I need to know why she's here." I grabbed the folder and slipped out of the booth, moving toward the back exit. "Text me if she leaves." I stepped into the alley behind the diner, my breath shallow. From the corner of the building, I watched Clara approach a table near the front, where a woman sat alone. Not the woman from the photo, this one was younger, with short blonde hair and nervous energy. Clara sat across from her, their conversation quick and hushed. I couldn't hear them, but Clara's posture was tense, her hands gesturing sharply. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "She's talking to a PI. Not one of mine. Be careful." Another investigator? My head spun. Was Clara tracking someone, or was she tracking me? I waited, hidden in the alley, until Clara left the diner and drove off. The blonde woman stayed, scribbling notes. I slipped back inside, avoiding her table, and rejoined Marcus. "She's playing a deeper game than I thought," he said, closing his laptop. "That PI she met? Probably digging into you or someone else. You need to move fast, Elliot. Whatever she's hiding, she's covering her tracks." I nodded, but my mind was on that passport. Elena Carter. A name that wasn't hers, tied to millions. I drove home, the folder burning a hole in my passenger seat. Clara was still out when I got there, so I went to her office, a small room we rarely used. I searched her desk again, this time finding a locked drawer I'd overlooked. The key from Unit 47 didn't fit, but I pried it open with a letter opener. Inside was a single item, a burner phone. I powered it on, my hands shaking. One contact, labeled V. Victor. The call log showed daily calls, some lasting over an hour. The most recent was from this morning, just before she left for work. I opened the texts. The latest one read, "He's asking questions. We need to move the timeline up." My blood ran cold. She was talking about me. I was the one asking questions. But what timeline? And what was she planning? I turned off the phone and hid it back in the drawer, my mind racing. I couldn't confront her yet, not without knowing the full scope of her lies. That night, Clara came home, her smile as polished as ever. "Good day?" she asked, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Same old," I said, watching her closely. "You?" "Busy," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Lots of meetings." I nodded, but my hand rested on the folder in my jacket. Elena Carter. Victor Lang. A burner phone. The pieces were piling up, but the picture was still blurry. I needed to know what was in that filing cabinet in Unit 47 and who the woman in the photo was. Tomorrow, I'd go back. But as Clara hummed softly, setting the table for dinner, I felt a chill. She was one step ahead, and I was running out of time to catch up. Clara's burner phone haunted me. It's single contact, V for Victor Lang, and that text, he's asking questions. We need to move the timeline up, played on a loop in my mind. I sat in our living room, the folder from Marcus hidden under a stack of magazines, as Clara moved through the kitchen, oblivious to my scrutiny. Her every gesture felt like a performance now, each smile a calculated brushstroke. I needed to get back to Unit 47, to that locked filing cabinet. But first, I had to know who the woman in the photo was, the one with dark hair and sharp cheekbones, laughing with Clara like they shared a secret. The next morning, I called Marcus before Clara woke up. The woman in the park photo, I said, keeping my voice low. Any leads? I'm close, Marcus replied. That I hit on facial recognition from a database I shouldn't have access to. Her name's Sophia Reed, mid-40s, no criminal record, but she's linked to Lang's network. Used to be a financial consultant. Dropped off the grid 2 years ago. 2 years, I echoed, my mind flashing to the lease agreement I'd found in Unit 47, signed by Clara around the same time. Find out where she is now. And get me into that filing cabinet. Working on it, Marcus said. But Elliot, Lang's operation is tight. If Clara's in deep with him, you're walking a thin line. I hung up and slipped out before Clara stirred. I drove to the storage facility, the key to Unit 47 heavy in my pocket. The place was quiet, the morning sun barely cresting the horizon. I unlocked the unit and went straight for the filing cabinet, but its lock mocked me, unyielding. I searched the boxes again, finding more bank statements under the Elena Carter alias, all tied to the same Cayman Islands account. Then, in a folder buried at the bottom, I found a letter. No envelope, no signature, just a single line in Clara's handwriting. Sophia, we're almost free. Free from what? Me? Our life? I pocketed the letter, my chest tight. As I locked the unit, my phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Sophia Reed spotted at a motel on Route 12. Room 214. Be there by noon. I glanced at my watch. 10:30 a.m. I could make it. The motel was a rundown place, its neon sign flickering weakly. I parked across the street, watching room 214's door. At 11:45, it opened, and there she was, Sophia Reed, unmistakable from the photo. She carried a duffel bag, her movements quick, nervous. No sign of Clara or Victor. I wanted to confront her, but my gut told me to wait. Instead, I followed her as she drove to a small office park, where she met a man, not Victor, but someone new, younger, with a buzz cut and a leather jacket. They exchanged a USB drive, then parted ways. I called Marcus. Sophia's on the move. Just met some guy at an office park. What's her deal? She's a ghost, Marcus said. No address, no job, just ties to Lang's shell companies. That USB? Probably more data for their operation. I'm working on the filing cabinet lock. Give me until tomorrow. That night, Clara was late again, claiming a client dinner. I didn't challenge her. Instead, I studied the letter again. We're almost free. The words felt like a betrayal, sharper than any knife. I was losing her, not just to secrets, but to a life I couldn't fathom. As I lay awake, her burner phone's existence gnawed at me. I needed to hear her calls with Victor. The next morning, I checked the burner phone while Clara showered. A new text from V Motel tonight. Bring the last file. My pulse quickened. Tonight, I'd be there. But what was the last file? NY Motel. The motel on Route 12 loomed like a bad omen, its faded paint peeling under the dusk light. I parked 2 blocks away, my car hidden behind a gas station. Clara's text to Victor Lang Motel tonight. Bring the last file had set my plan in motion. I wasn't just following her anymore. I was going to catch her in the act. The folder from Marcus, the letter from Unit 47, and the burner phone were all in my briefcase, a growing arsenal of evidence. But evidence of what? Fraud? Infidelity? Something worse? I texted Marcus, at the motel. Room 214. Clara's meeting Lang tonight. Any update on Sophia? His reply was quick. Sophia's gone dark again. Filing cabinet lock is a custom job. Need a specialist. Be careful tonight. Lang's not alone. Not alone? My stomach nodded. I adjusted my cap, pulling it low, and slipped into the motel's parking lot, sticking to the shadows. Room 214's curtains were drawn, but a faint light glowed behind them. I crouched near a vending machine, close enough to see the door. At 8:15 p.m., Clara's car pulled in. She stepped out, her dark coat blending with the night, a manila folder in her hand. My breath caught. The last file. She knocked on room 214's door. Victor opened it, his gray suit replaced by a black sweater, his face tense. Another man stood behind him, the one with the buzz cut from Sophia's meeting. Clara handed Victor the folder, and they spoke briefly, Their voices too low to hear. Then she left, driving off without a glance back. I wanted to follow, but Victor and the buzzcut man were still inside. I needed that folder. I waited until they stepped out, Victor clutching the folder as they headed to his sedan. I snapped a photo with my phone, my hands unsteady. Marcus's warning echoed. Lang's not alone. Who was the second man? Another fixer? I followed them to a warehouse district, where they entered an unmarked building. I didn't dare go closer, not yet. Back home, Clara was already in bed, her face peaceful. I checked the burner phone. No new texts, but a voicemail from Victor. We're set for tomorrow. Sophia's ready. Don't back out now. My blood ran cold. Sophia. The warehouse. The file. It was all converging, and I was still a step behind. The next morning, I met Marcus at a coffee shop. He slid a key across the table, a duplicate for Unit 47's filing cabinet. Cost me a favor, he said. What's your next move? I'm going back to the unit, I said. Tonight. And I'm finding out what Clara's planning with Sophia. As I drove home, Clara called, her voice bright. Dinner tonight? Just us. I agreed, but my mind was on the warehouse, the motel, and Sophia's words. We're almost free. What was Clara running from? And why did I feel like I was the one being trapped? The filing cabinet in Unit 47 was my last hope for answers. Marcus's key felt like a lifeline as I drove to the storage facility that night, Clara's dinner invitation still ringing in my ears. She'd been almost too warm, her eyes lingering on me as if testing my suspicion. I'd played along, promising to be home by 8 p.m., but I had no intention of keeping that promise. Not until I knew what was in that cabinet. The facility was dark, the security lights flickering. I unlocked Unit 47 and went straight for the cabinet, the key sliding in smoothly. It opened with a soft click, revealing folders stacked neatly inside. I grabbed the first one, my phone's flashlight illuminating the pages. Contracts, emails, and ledgers, all under the Elena Carter alias. One document stopped me cold, a transfer of ownership for a property in Lisbon, dated next month. Clara's signature was on it, alongside Sophia Reed's. Lisbon. She was planning to leave not just me, but the country. My chest tightened as I flipped through more files. Bank records showed millions funneled through Victor Lang's shell company, with notes referencing Project Haven. A photo slipped out, a younger Clara with Sophia, both in graduation caps, smiling at a college ceremony. They'd known each other for decades. Why had Clara never mentioned her? I found a USB drive taped to the back of a folder. I pocketed it, my mind racing. Was this the last file Clara gave Victor? I was about to close the cabinet when I heard a car engine outside. I froze, dousing my light. Footsteps approached, then stopped. A voice Victor's muttered she said it's secure. Another voice, the buzzcut man, replied, better be. We're too close. I crouched behind the boxes, my heart hammering. They didn't enter, but I heard the clank of the gate closing. They were checking the unit. I waited 10 minutes, then slipped out, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. At home, Clara was waiting, the table set with candles. You're late, she said, her smile tight. That held up. I lied, watching her closely. Did she know I'd been in the unit? Dinner was torture. Every bite tasted like ash as I studied her, searching for cracks in her facade. After she went to bed, I plugged the USB into my laptop. Password protected. I tried every combination I could think of, her birthday, our anniversary, even Elena Carter. Nothing worked. But one file was accessible, an audio recording. I hit play, and Clara's voice filled the room, low and urgent. Sophia, it's done. He won't suspect until it's too late. I stopped the recording, my hands shaking. She was talking about me. The USB held the key to her plan, but I couldn't crack it, not yet. I hit it and went to bed, Clara's steady breathing beside me a cruel contrast to the storm in my head. Tomorrow, I'd confront Sophia. She was the missing piece, and I was done chasing shadows. Sophia Reed was my last lead. The photo of her with Clara, the Lisbon property, the audio on the USB, they all pointed to her. I called Marcus at dawn, before Clara woke. I need Sophia's location, I said. Now. She's back at the motel, Marcus replied. Room 214. But Elliot, Lang's people are watching her. You go in, you're exposed. I don't care, I said. I'm ending this. I drove to the motel, the USB and folder in my briefcase. Room 214's door was ajar when I arrived, Sophia inside, packing a suitcase. She froze when she saw me, her dark eyes narrowing. Who are you? She demanded, but her voice wavered. She knew. I'm Elliot, I said, stepping inside. Clara's husband. Tell me what's going on. Now. Her face paled, but she didn't run. You shouldn't be here, she said, glancing at the door. It's not what you think. Then explain it, I snapped, holding up the photo of her and Clara. The money, the alias, Lisbon. What's Project Haven? And why is my wife lying to me? Sophia hesitated, then sighed, sinking onto the bed. Clara and I, we've been friends since college. She came to me 3 years ago, desperate. She'd stumbled into something Victor Lang's operation. He was laundering money for clients, big players. Clara got pulled in, managing accounts under the Elena Carter name. She wanted out, but Lang doesn't let people walk away. My stomach twisted. So she's a victim? Sophia's laugh was bitter. She was. No? She's in too deep. Project Haven is her exit plan, moving the money to Lisbon, starting over. With me. With you. I repeated, my voice hollow. She's leaving me? Sophia looked away. She didn't want to hurt you. But Lang's dangerous. She's protecting you by keeping you in the dark. I didn't believe her. Clara's lies, her secret meetings, they weren't protection. They were betrayal. What's on the USB? I asked. Proof, Sophia said. Records of Lang's deals. Clara's been collecting them to expose him. That's why she's meeting him tonight. One last handoff. I left the motel, my mind a storm. Clara wasn't just leaving me. She was planning to vanish with Sophia, using Lang's money. But the audio he won't suspect until it's too late suggested something darker. Was she planning to frame me? I drove home, formulating a plan. Confronting Clara wouldn't work. She'd lie, or worse, disappear. I needed to outsmart her, to turn her game against her. That night, Clara was home, humming as she cooked. I watched her, my resolve hardening. I'd let her think she'd won for now. But I was done being the fool. Clara's lies had built a house of cards, and I was ready to knock it down. The USB, the folder, Sophia's confession, everything pointed to her plan. Vanished to Lisbon with Sophia, leaving me behind, possibly framed for Victor Lang's crimes. But I wasn't going to let her win. My revenge wouldn't be loud or violent. It would be precise, psychological, and final. She'd feel the weight of her own deception. I spent the day preparing. Marcus cracked the USB's password, revealing files that confirmed Sophia's story, ledgers of Lang's laundering, emails implicating Clara as Elena Carter, and a flight itinerary for 2 to Lisbon, dated next week. One name was Clara's, the other, Sophia's. My name was nowhere. But there was something else, a draft email from Clara to Lang, unsent, detailing a plan to redirect suspicion to me if things went south. She'd been ready to throw me under the bus. I called Marcus. I need you to do one last thing, I said. Send an anonymous tip to the feds about Lang's operation. Include the USB files, but make sure it points to Clara and Sophia, not me. Done, Marcus said. You sure about this, Elliot? Never been sure, I replied. I wasn't just exposing Clara, I was setting the stage. That night, Clara was nervous, her eyes darting to her phone as we ate dinner. She thought she was meeting Lang later, but I'd already texted him from her burner phone, canceling the meeting. Instead, I'd arranged for Sophia to receive a message from Clara, asking her to meet at the warehouse where Lang operated. I knew the feds were closing in, thanks to Marcus's tip. Clara's empire was about to crumble. Everything okay? I asked, my tone light, almost playful. She forced a smile. Just tired. Big project at work. I nodded, hiding my own smile. After dinner, she said she was going for a drive to clear her head. I let her go, knowing she'd head to the warehouse, expecting Sophia. I followed at a distance, parking far enough to stay unseen. The warehouse was dark, but I saw Clara's car, then Sophia's. Minutes later, flashing lights appeared, federal agents, swarming the place. I watched from afar as Clara and Sophia were led out in handcuffs, their faces pale with shock. I didn't stay to gloat. Back home, I left a single item on the kitchen counter, the photo of Clara and Sophia, with a note in my handwriting. You were almost free. When Clara returned, if she returned, she'd know I'd unraveled her plan. The feds had everything. The USB, the ledgers, her alias. Lang was implicated, too, but Clara's name was front and center. She'd spend years untangling herself, if she ever could. I moved out the next day, leaving no trace. My firm was thriving, my life my own again. Clara's betrayal had broken me, but I'd rebuilt myself stronger. She'd wanted freedom, but I'd given her a cage of her own making. As I drove to my new apartment, the weight of the past lifted. I was free, and she'd never see me coming.